This is Local SEO Tactics, where each week we're bringing you tips and tricks on how to help you grow your website and expand your business online. This week we're going to talk about a pretty basic SEO question we get all the time, which is, how do I get my website listed in Google and Bing? Pretty straightforward. Take some notes. We're going to tell you what you need to know on how to get into Google, how to get into Bing, and then make sure all your new pages that you're creating are automatically added to their index as well. So stay tuned and hope you guys enjoy. Hey everyone, Bob and Jesse here. Wanted to talk to you real quick about live chat. It's our favorite online live chatting service that you can implement in your website. Super easy, and we actually have a promotion with live chat. If you go out to intrix.com/live chat, and we'll put a link to that in our show notes, you actually get a 60-day free trial. I think their standard is like 30 days. So this is pretty cool. If you're interested in checking it out, real easy. You can get 2 months under your belt. Check it out. We talked back in episode 28, I think it was, about how more customers are contacting you via chat, instant messaging, and just your website in general, as opposed to a phone number. So if you don't have a solution like this is a great chance for you to check it out. Throw it on your website. Super easy. Again, go out to intrix.com/live chat. Hey everyone, welcome back to Local SEO Tactics. I'm Jesse Dolan here with Bob Brennan, as always. And this week we're going to be talking about how to get your website submitted to Google and to Bing, the two major search engines. We've touched on this a little bit before in a previous episode about using Google Search Console, and we'll put a link to that in our show notes. There's going to be some good information in there that we're not going to touch on. Today we're just going to be talking about how to submit your website to be found, not so much the features of Google Search Console or Bing Webmaster Tools, but just focusing on that. So reason triggered this is in late July, Google used to have a add URL link on their website where anybody could just add a page or add a website publicly with Google. They got rid of that in late July. It was somewhere around July 23rd or something like that, July 24th, if I remember right. So now the only way to submit your website to Google is to go through the Google Search Console, and you have to have an account to do that. So again, refer back to the previous episode. We kind of talk about how to do that. So we're going to kind of blow through that real quick. The address to get set up for that is google.com/webmasters. And if you already have a Google account, you just log in with that. You'll have to jump through a couple hoops real quick. You'd have to verify your website that you're going to be setting up in your dashboard to prove that you own it.
Yep.
And through there is how you're going to submit it to Google. You're not going to just plug it in and say, here's my website. Let's do this. You have to use something that's called a sitemap. So if you're using WordPress, there's a lot of really good plugins out there that allow you to do this. And if you're not using WordPress, we'll put a link to some of the ones that we recommend for people. We don't have any horse in the race on those. There's ones that we use ourselves on how to generate that sitemap. And if you use WordPress, which hopefully you are, because it's rock solid, super easy to use. The cool part about that, like if you're using Yoast, for example, as the plugin to generate your sitemap, it automatically updates it. So once you get into Google and you set this up, what the sitemap is it's kind of like your index, right? Or your chapter listing, however you want to kind of visualize that, of all your pages on your website. So you give that to Google, and that's going to give Google a list of all your pages. So if you're using something like Yoast with WordPress, if you go out and you make a new page or a new post, or even if you want images to be found in there too, if you add a new image to your website, it's going to automatically update that sitemap. So once you kind of give it to Google, you're from now going forward, they're going to look at this link and say, is there any new pages here that we should worry about? If they find one linked on there, then they're going to put it into their index. And so it can be found in the search engine. If you're not using something like Yoast with WordPress, it's a little bit more of a manual process. So let's just say you're using a traditional HTML coded website and you add half a dozen new pages today. If you're not using a service that automatically regenerates your sitemap for you and then republishes it, you're going to have to do that manually, because Google's still going to look at that address where you put that sitemap and say, well, this is all of their web pages.
Right.
If you didn't update that sitemap, if you didn't update your table of contents or your index, if you will, they don't know that there's new content there. So you'll have to regenerate that and re-upload it and go through that. Now, it doesn't mean if you don't do this, Google's never going to find your content. They can still follow links. If somebody links to your content from another website or within your website, if you're linking to that new content, they're still going to find it eventually. We're not really wanting to Google just take their own time and do this, though. If we put out some new content, we want them to know immediately that we put out new content, so that content can be found and show up in search results. We don't want to have to wait days, weeks, or months for that to happen. So your best bet for your stuff to get found is to utilize that sitemap. Be aware, if you're kind of doing a manual process, that you're going to have to update that yourself to let Google know. And best case, again, just if you haven't converted to WordPress yet, or if you can't for some reason, then, sorry, but that is the best. But if you can convert to WordPress, I mean, right there is just a great reason to jump on board if you can. If you need any help in that, you can reach out to us. We can point you in the right direction or even give you a hand. Intrix.com/show, as always, for that. But let me kind of roll back a little bit because I kind of got a little bit ahead there talking about the sitemaps, just to kind of want to make that clear. So to submit your website to Google, again, you got to set up an account, Google Search Console. You do have to verify that you own the website. After that, then you have to go to the spot to actually submit your website to Google. Google has a new Search Console that some people kind of default to that. It'll say beta up in the top left-hand corner. If you don't like that, and I would recommend using the old one still at this point, you just scroll down to the bottom left corner. It says go to the old version, and you use the kind of the classic version of the Google Search Console. And within there, you would go to the top right corner. You'll see it where it says sitemaps, and then there'll be a big red button that says add a sitemap. You can also update your sitemap there too if you're doing this manually. You would go there and resubmit it to them if something changes. Now, if for some reason you have a page that's just not showing up, like so, I've got my sitemap. I can find my new pages listed in my sitemap because that's something you can still look at yourself. It's kind of technical to look at. It's not pretty. It's just a bunch of words and codes.
Right. But
you should be able to see your new pages on there. And kind of a cool trick for that, at least if you're on a Windows PC, is Control F, which is F stands for find. So if you're on any web page, like your sitemap, instead of trying to read through the whole thing, which might take a long time, and trying to find your words, just hit Control F and then type in what you're looking for, right? So if you're looking for the new page about, dog toys, hit Control F, dog toys, and that's going to highlight and bring you on the page wherever it's finding those, those words like that. So kind of a little pro tip there that saves you a lot of time and makes it super easy to find information like that, especially on a page that's just mashed full of text like your sitemap would be. So at any rate, if you're in a position where you say my page is on my sitemap, Google should be finding it, but I'm not seeing it, in my index pages, and I can't find it anywhere on Google, you can manually submit a page still. So you can't do this in the new Google Search Console. You do have to use the old version. So hopefully they're going to add this feature back into the new version, at some point here. At the time of this recording, it's still not available, but everybody's kind of clamoring for it. So what you'd do is you would go to the crawl section on the left-hand side menu, and then you want to do fetch as Google. So what you're going to do there is you're going to enter in the exact page that you're wanting to do, and then you click fetch, and so Google's going to go out and basically try to pull that page. If it can actually find that page with the address that you plugged in, it'll give you a little green icon. Like it's not a thumbs up, but it's essentially like a thumbs up. Good, right. We found it. And from there, you can hit submit for indexing, which means so Google has found the page. Now you want to say go ahead and put this in your file cabinet to be found for later. And it usually takes about 2 days from what we've seen for them to go through that process and get it into the index, and you should be good to go. So just to kind of reset on the Google Search Console part, to submit your website to Google, you got to have an account at the GSC, Google Search Console. You got to have a sitemap to submit to them that lists all your pages. And then from there, if you need a manual submission, you can do that through the fetch and submit tool there. Definitely wouldn't recommend anybody say, well, if I can just manually submit pages, I don't need to do a sitemap. I'll just submit my pages one by one here. Number one, it's going to take you forever. Number two, after a few submissions, they make you do the stupid little, I'm not a robot, click here, and then pick the signs, pick the cars and all that. It's going to be super, super tedious. Yeah. You're going to waste way more time doing that than you would if you just went and did the stinking sitemap the right way in the first place. And then moving forward, every time you create a new page, that sitemap is going to automatically update. So you're just going to want to stick with that. That's definitely the best option. So that's Google. I'm going to switch over to Bing real quick because you do want to be found in Bing too. Yep. We've talked in previous episodes. And again, we'll link to this one in the show notes.
It's 10% of the searches. So
10% or more. It can be up to 30% depending on the industry. Yeah. Where did we talk back in episode 26 about that? We'll put a link there. You want to do Bing too. You can't just take it for granted and skip it. You gotta get yourself in there. So for that, you need to sign up, go through bing.com/toolbox/webmaster, and we'll put a link to this in the show notes as well to make it real easy for everybody. Intrix.com/show. And from there, you do have to sign in. So if you have like a Hotmail address, or if you have an Outlook account or something like that, you can sign in using that or set up a new account. Super easy. So once you're into Bing, they're going to have a bar right up at the top to add your website, and you got to go through a similar process just like you would for Google. You have to verify that it's your website. So they're going to make you install some kind of a tag or maybe even upload a file. They just want to prove that you have access to this website and that you own it, and then you can kind of manage it within the dashboard here. So you got to go through that process as well. Again, I'll roll back and say if you're using WordPress, and then if you have Yoast installed on WordPress, they make it super easy to do this verification on both Google and Bing to show that you own the website. So I recommend that for another reason as well right there. So after you've got your website, verified and prove that you own it in Bing, same thing here. You're going to want to submit your sitemap to Bing as well. When you're initially setting up your website in Bing, they'll have a spot where you can paste it in there. If for some reason you skip that or you need to do it later, in the left-hand menu under the Configure My Site, you'll see a link that says Sitemap. Click that, and you enter in the same link that you would for Google to submit your sitemap. And all that works just like Google. Same thing. They're going to be monitoring your sitemap, looking for changes. They'll automatically add your pages to their index when they find them in your sitemap. And again, if you have a link that's either not working or maybe you want to do it manually, they also have a link under the Configure My Site. That's Submit URLs. And same thing here. You just kind of put it in there manually, hit submit. It's not like Google where you got to fetch it and then submit it for indexing. So not the exact same process, but very similar in spirit. Put your link in there and submit it to them, and then they know that they're going to be looking for it. So those are the two ways. You definitely want to do Google and Bing. Bing also feeds Yahoo and some other kind of ancillary search engines. That's part of what makes it so popular, up to that 10 to 30%, depending on your market, for those searches.
So when you're talking about sitemap, that's a specific page within your site that has like a table of contents of sorts for the whole site. And by using Yoast is some kind of an SEO tool of sorts,
SEO
right?
plugin for WordPress, It
right.
does some other stuff too, but
right.
It automatically does the sitemaps.
So it automatically, by using the Yoast tool, you can actually just give the Yoast address or the address for the Yoast plugin, so to speak, to it, and it does its deal. Is that what you just kind of explained?
So if you had WordPress, just kind of walk through that real quick. You'd install Yoast as a plugin, which is free. They have paid versions, but use the free one. And then there's a button in there to, I believe by default, it's enabled. But even if not, you're going to want to go in there and kind of manually configure it to set up your sitemap. So you can say, what content do I want listed on my sitemap?
Right.
You may not want your images listed in your sitemap, let's say, for example, or maybe if you have if you do blog posts and web pages, but you don't want your blog posts to be indexed in the search engines for some reason, right? So you can basically go through their little toggles like yes or no, essentially, or enable, disable, I think technically, and you go through the type of content that you want on the sitemap and hit save, and then after that, you'll have a link that is what you need where the sitemap is actually going to be. That's what you're going to copy. So it'll be, intrix.com/sitemap, let's say, .xml, or whatever it is. That's the link you're going to copy. Yoast will generate it and kind of make that page on your website for you. Right. Then you got to copy and paste that into, Google and Bing. Yoast is one of our favorites. We use it on virtually all of our websites. So there's some competitors out there that are pretty good too. There's like All-in-One SEO. That's probably the other big main one. But basically what it does is, and there's different levels and purchases you can make for it, but out of the box for the default free one, the main things we like about it is the sitemap for you.
Yep.
It allows you to authenticate your website with Google and Bing to prove you have the ownership in a super easy way. And then it also allows you to kind of grade your pages. Without getting too deep in the details on that, basically when you go to make your page in WordPress or even edit your page, it'll have like a stoplight of different SEO features, and your goal is to make the stoplight green right at the top, saying good, it's green, you're ready to go, and it'll kind of break down some areas for you, like maybe you don't have enough text on your page, or maybe you repeated your keyword too many times, or maybe your page, they actually go through like a readability score, like, hey, your grammar is horrible, your page is super hard to read, make some improvements there. So that's pretty cool. It's almost like an SEO for dummies for how to write a page.
Right.
We rely on it. I mean, a lot of the big SEO companies out there rely on it. It's not like some secret trick or anything. It's just the thing is awesome, and it helps you take a lot of the guesswork and the manual checklist out of it. So that's the other really big benefit that it has, and they update it. It's probably the most popular one, and it's got a big development team behind it, and can't recommend it enough. And the price is great. It's free, right? Well, that's about it for this week. If you guys got any questions, kind of like this one here that we're tackling, we brought it up. I forgot to mention at the front side. People are always asking, how do I submit my website to Google? They took away that add URL. What are some options? So this is how we kind of know what's important, what kind of help you guys need, what things you want to hear about. So feel free to reach out to us, intrix.com/show, and we'd love to know what you need help with and what you want to hear. So let's get into our 5-star review of the week here for this week. And this week we got another great 5-star review from RunDMC19, which is an awesome username.
Sweet.
Probably one of the best we've had so far.
Oh, yeah.
Goes on to say, as a content producer, I really needed a podcast like this to help me sharpen my SEO on my website. Also, I appreciate the effort put in to make this relatable to anyone. Great job. Thanks for the great 5-star review, RunDMC19. That's what we're trying to do. We're just two regular guys who do this for a living, get a ton of questions, talk to a lot of people, and we're just trying to help. So hopefully you enjoy these episodes. If you ever want to reach out to us for some help above and beyond what we're talking about here, we're always available for consultations or even just bend our ear for a minute. Go to intrix.com/show and you can reach out to us. And anybody else, as far as iTunes reviews goes, we read one every week. We'd love to keep getting them from you guys. If you go to intrix.com/iTunes, that'll tell you what you need to know how to leave one on iTunes, and we'd really appreciate it.